but welcome. It's wonderful to see you all and a lovely full room. My name is Kate Day. I'm Politico Europe's Deputy Editor-in-Chief, and I couldn't be more excited to have you all here to celebrate the launch of our latest product, ProTech UK. It's a particularly special one for me. My very first job as a journalist was for the Los Altos Town Crier, a tiny little newspaper in the heart of Silicon Valley, and I got very interested in what the tech guys and girls were doing all around me, and this sparked a lifelong interest in innovation. And then if we fast forward more years than I'm going to tell you, I've been at Politico now since 2015, and I've long felt British politics was really lacking a Politico to cover tech policy. So I'm very excited that we've now rectified that, and under the wonderful leadership of Oscar Williams, our new tech editor, we've built a team and started a morning newsletter and a policy subscription service that we hope will entertain and delight and intrigue you all with coverage, serious coverage of British tech policy and the people who drive it, but hopefully delivered in the way you have come to expect from London Playbook and many of our other products, with a bit of fun, as our founding editor in Washington continually reminds us, we are not oatmeal. Nobody has to read us. And so we hope we can make this enjoyable too. But for tonight, I'm delighted that we've got the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, here with us, and he's going to be interviewed by our UK editor, Jack Blanchard, a familiar figure to all of you, I'm sure. I'll welcome them on stage in a moment, but first I'd like to introduce you to Debbie Weinstein, the Vice President of Google and Managing Director of Google in the UK and Ireland. She's going to come up in a minute and give some opening remarks. It's wonderful to have you here and to have you as our partners, so thank you very much. But before I welcome Debbie on stage, I'd just like to remind you that we like to make these things as interactive as possible. And you can join in by tweeting about it. Our hashtag on Twitter is #LivePolitico. And you can ask questions via an app called Slido using the hashtag PoliticoUK. You'll see the details up behind me. So please do get your questions in. Jack will be putting some of them to the Chancellor in a minute. But first, Debbie, I'd love to welcome you on stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and good evening. I hope you've all had a chance to get a drink, to catch up with friends, and maybe to have a chat with Bard. Anyone have a chat with Bard? No? Okay, well, I'm Debbie Weinstein, and as Kate said, I lead Google in the UK, and I joined the business about 7 weeks ago from California, right near Los Altos, where I was leading part of our business for Google in the US. And I'm really delighted that you've launched this great newsletter for all of us in this industry in the UK. And as I said, I hope you've all had a chance to play around with Bard, and I'll tell you a little bit about Bard. Bard is our generative AI experiment, and we position it as a creative and helpful collaborator to boost productivity and bring ideas to life. So as I thought about what I was going to say this evening, I said, let's see what Bard has to say, and in particular, let's see if Bard has a good joke. So here's the joke he came up with. What's the difference between the Google UK MD and a politician? The Google UK MD knows when to stop talking. So we'll see about that. Now, I don't want to contradict our wonderful technology. I, for one, am really looking forward to hearing the Chancellor and his remarks on the latest budget and his thoughts on tech driving innovation for the UK economy. I would say that the recent AI white paper is a great example of this. It's a world-leading framework, and it's really going to help power AI innovation for all of us in the UK, creating new products and services that are going to help companies and people across the UK thrive. And we really see this as the essential formula for growth. We think that we can encourage innovators like Google to make great tech here in the UK through effective regulation and incentivizing investment in digital infrastructure. Those are fundamental to getting investments right in AI and cloud. But it's actually really about the users, the people and the businesses that then use those technologies to bring their ideas to life. That's really what's going to allow for the flourishing of all of us. And what we want to see is that we actually can drive take-up across the UK broadly. When we all are using these technologies, then we all can benefit. This means ensuring that people and businesses everywhere have the digital skills they need and access to the latest technology. At Google, we stand ready to help make this vision a reality. We believe technology is our future, and we're excited to get there together. Google's actually been in the UK for nearly 20 years, and it's all about developing our mission to make the world's information universally accessible and useful. And in that time, our well-loved products have been used by millions of Brits. We've used it to find information, we've used it to get to places, we've used it to communicate with the people that mean most to us, and sometimes our bosses. And our advertising products have helped millions of us across the UK thrive as well. In fact, it's helped people get online for the very first time, to build their customers, and to find businesses outside of the UK and build expert businesses. In 2020 alone, we estimated that we supported over £55 billion in economic activity for over 700,000 businesses. Businesses like the Mockingbird Cinema in Birmingham, which was able to survive the pandemic years by using Google Ads to find potential consumers for new products like movie quizzes while they weren't able to open their doors. And when it comes to AI, we've actually all been using Google's AI for many years already, whether it's products like Translate or autocorrect in Gmail. But we actually see AI actually having a profound impact on people's lives as well. Take Project Relate. It's an AI-powered app. It was built by our London-based engineers in collaboration with many expert organizations. And it actually helps people with non-standard speech communicate more easily. And for one of our users, where only 10% of what she said was understood by people that she just met, it actually helped her get to a level where 90% of what she said was understood. The implications of greater inclusivity are enormous on people's flourishing and society overall. And it's my ambition that as I've come into this role, Google continues to help everyone in the UK achieve their ambitions, big and small, through sustainable, responsible, and impactful technology. We're really thrilled that this Tech Pro newsletter is now in the market. I know I've learned a ton, as I was sharing with Jack, from Westminster Insider, as I've come into this new role. I actually have a podcast that you recorded called How to Write a Great Political Speech, queued up in my podcast queue. I maybe should have listened to it before this evening's event. But at any rate, I am really looking forward to hearing more. I think it's fair to say there is a lot of stuff going on in tech right now, and we need the best to be reporting on it. So, I want to congratulate Jack and Katie and Tom Bristow and Annabelle Dixon and Mark Scott and the whole team that's supporting Tech Pro UK for your hard work on making this a success. We really look forward to seeing it in our inbox every morning. Now we're going to hear from the Chancellor, interviewed by Politico's UK editor, Jack Blanchard. And as per my opening joke from Bard, I hopefully will know when to stop talking. So, over to Jack and the Chancellor.
Thank you, Debbie. Hello, everyone. My name's Jack Blanchard. As you've just heard, I was the guy that set up Playbook years ago and Westminster Insider podcast. I'm now the UK editor at Politico, which means I get to sleep all through the night, every night, apart from when my small children wake me up every night. But life is good and much better for all of that. We've been talking about launching this Tech Pro product for ages, Kate and I, for years, so it's very exciting to be actually doing it tonight, and very exciting indeed to have the Chancellor in attendance to come and speak. I was thinking about it. You might think that the sort of tech bro at the top of government is the guy in the hoodies and the sliders and the California thing, but actually, Jeremy Hunt, you set up a tech company in the 1990s, did you not? And in entrepreneurial style, sold it off for millions of pounds. So maybe you can come and tell us exactly how the tech bro thing works in government. So yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jeremy Hunt. Thank you. We will get onto tech in one moment. The first thing that I just had to ask you this, because I was thinking back like 3 years ago, 2019, Boris Johnson won the leadership contest, you were out of government. Were you a little bit surprised last month to find yourself standing up making a budget speech in the House of Commons? It's quite a turnaround over 3 years.
I mean, it was a massive surprise to me. I thought I was all beached up and happily on the back benches, and I actually took my wife for a weekend away on Eurostar, and we got up I had a nice moule frite in Brussels, of all places. And,
Where else?
I got up and I saw a message on my phone saying, "This is Liz Truss, please call." And I
Never a good
shouted
sign.
to Lucia, who was actually brushing her teeth. I said, "Oh, it's another hoaxer trying to call me up." I said, "It's ridiculous." And so I ignored it. And then I got an unrecognised phone number, and I thought, it's probably a journalist, Jack, no offence, but I thought I'm on holiday, so I zapped that. And we went down and had a wonderful breakfast, and eventually I had to be called by a former special advisor saying, "No, Liz Truss is really trying to speak to you." Yes, it was a surprise, but it was a privilege. I seem to specialise in jobs that are tricky. That's what seems to have happened, and this is no different from that, but it's a big privilege nonetheless.
Tricky is definitely the word for it. I mean, you took over the economy at quite a moment. Things are more stable now, but we've seen figures today on inflation, which will have been higher than you would have wanted, hoped, probably expected. Can you tell us, cast iron promise, that inflation is actually going to have been halved by the end of the year?
Well, that's our plan.
That's not a promise, is it?
Well, we've nailed our colours to the mast of saying we will get inflation down by half by the end of the year. So we're fully accountable for that. What I would say is, when inflation is above 10%, it is destabilising for the economy. It is not a good place to be. Ultimately, it is dangerous if you leave it there. But I think the good news is that there is a plan to bring it down. And it's not just what the government and what politicians are saying. Independent forecasters like the Office for Budget Responsibility, the Bank of England, they say if we stick to our plan, we'll get inflation down to below 3%. But I think when you look at all the pressures, the strikes that are happening in public services, you realise just how corrosive it is when people can see prices going up by faster than their wages. And that's why it's so important, if we want to bring back stability to the economy and stop people having to worry about cost of living pressures, we just have to get inflation down.
I saw several people today commenting or raising concerns that part of the problem was the tightness of the labour market. I heard that from the hospitality industry, from economic think tanks. Is it true to say that a shortage of workers is holding back growth, it's driving up wage inflation?
It's definitely a significant factor, and that's why I spent the budget focusing on the issue of labour supply. And it's also a question that we have to answer post-Brexit, when we're not part of the single market. How are we going to fill the 1.1 million vacancies that we have in the British economy? Because obviously if businesses can't expand, we can't grow, and it has an inflationary impact. And that's why we had a big set of measures looking at the 4 cohorts of people. I mean, it's worth saying that we have 7 million adults of working age who are not in work. Some of those people will not be able to work because of a severe disability, but more than 5 million are able to work, and the vast majority of those want to work. So it's more than possible to fill every vacancy in the economy if we set our minds to it. And that's why the childcare reforms, for example, we need the skills.
We need the skills, and people in this room, tech sector in particular, will talk about how their businesses are suffering skill shortages. And many of them will say this has become much more acute since we left the EU. I don't want to relitigate that, but are there words of comfort you can offer people that we're open to skilled migration?
Well, we are open to skilled migration. In fact, that's one of the big changes we've made, and we've removed a lot of the bureaucracy, and we've got fast-track visa processes for people who have the skills that we need. And I would say that the tech industry is more international than any other industry. And anywhere you go in the tech world, anywhere on the globe, they will say there are skill shortages. The number one challenge they face is finding people who know how to code AI and all these new areas, quantum, that are emerging. And so skills is a massive issue. But I don't think you get places that are much better than the UK in terms of being able to tap into those skills. We have a tremendous skills base in new and emerging technology. But can we do more? Absolutely. And by the way, maths to 18 is going to be something that makes us even stronger when it comes to those skills.
Do we need a conversation about opening up migration a bit more, though? You talked about all these unfilled vacancies.
Well, when it comes to skilled migration, we are open. I mean, it is, you can get people to work in British companies if you can't find the skills here. And it is more generous than it was when we were in the EU. So we are absolutely open. When it comes to lower skilled migration, then I think we have a responsibility to find a different economic model that is not dependent on unlimited low skilled migration, because that's what people decided when they voted to leave the EU. And that's why we need to encourage businesses to invest in capital so that we're more automated. That's why in the budget we introduced full expensing, which makes it very competitive to invest in capital in the UK, one of the most competitive regimes in the OECD. But when it comes to skills, in the long run, we don't want to be over-dependent on other countries. We should be developing those skills in the UK, and that's why there's a very big skills agenda, a huge expansion of the apprenticeship programme. But in the short term, we recognise there are gaps that we have to fill.
You've talked about what your vision for a tech centre in the UK. Emmanuel Macron's got his own plans for Paris, though. Do you worry about other tech centres rivaling and eclipsing London?
Well, the way I put it is this. In the run-up to the autumn statement, that was a very challenging statement, because I was increasing taxes by 25 billion and cutting spending by 30 billion. So not an easy set of messages. And I wanted to give people some sense as to how we were going to get out of the hole. And I decided, I thought long and hard, should I tell people that I want the UK, we want the UK to be the world's next Silicon Valley? And I thought, if I put this in, is it going to be ridiculed? But in the end, I decided I would put it in, because I thought people need to know what the direction of travel is. And one of the biggest surprises from me was how little ridicule there was for this idea that we can be the world's next Silicon Valley. And why is that? Well, it's because in the last decade, we've become the third largest tech economy in the world after the US and China. We've become Europe's largest life sciences industry, Europe's second largest clean energy industry, Europe's largest film and TV industry. We do very well in certain sectors of advanced manufacturing, which are very technology heavy. And you put all that together with two great things that we have that France doesn't have, to take your Macron point. We have by far the largest financial services industry in Europe, and tech businesses need capital to expand. We can do better there, by the way, but that is a very important thing that we have. And we have the best higher education sector in Europe, the second best in the world. And so it's that combination of brilliant tech businesses, higher education research, and financial services that gives us something special. But I will be the first to say we are not there. We've got the ingredients, but we haven't yet baked the cake. And I want to make damn sure we do.
But there's another trend as well, isn't there, that we're seeing around the world now of state investment, state subsidy in big tech industry. You look at what the US did last year on semiconductors, you look at what the EU is now planning to do on semiconductors, right? Billions, tens of billions of dollars in terms of subsidies, attracting these big factories to their countries. We're not doing anything.
Well, that's not true. I mean, we actually have been.
Do you want
when
to
it comes to clean,
these
well, when it
sectors?
comes to clean energy, we're actually investing a greater proportion of our GDP in clean energy subsidies than the United States is, even after IRA. But we're doing it, I think, in a much smarter way. We're doing it with contracts for difference that give people long-term security of the prices they'll get for the energy that's generated from wind. We are doing subsidy. We've got a $1 billion automotive transformation fund. We will make sure that we remain competitive. But in the end, the thing that makes you competitive is the quality of your ideas, not the amount of your subsidies. And that is what makes the UK very, very special. If you look at artificial intelligence, we've got a third of all the European artificial intelligence businesses based here in the UK. With DeepMind, give my Google plug, we've got arguably one of the world's top 3 AI companies. And it's the quality of our research, our higher education, the people that we attract to set up their businesses here that is our advantage. There's a long way to go, but I think this is a race we can win.
But on microchips, we don't have a strategy, we don't have any subsidies, we're competing against countries that are putting tens of billions of dollars in. I mean, great on clean energy is a different thing though, isn't it?
Well, on chips, I mean, let's talk about that. Yes, all countries are now having to think about supply chain resilience. We looked at what happened with Ukraine, we saw the dangers of being over-dependent on Russia for energy, and we asked the same question about technology, and we know that we have to have better supply chain resilience. The strategic choice the world faces is now, do we all say we're going to do this on our own and go back to protectionism, which would bring global growth back into the dark ages? Or do we recognize the benefits of free trade and say that amongst friends and allies and people who share democratic values, we're going to build up resilient supply chains that we know will weather any global storms that we face? And so we too will have to think about the resilience of those supply chains. But when I was in Washington last week, my message to my fellow finance ministers is that it would be a big step backwards if we start putting up protectionist barriers for all our critical technologies, when in the end it will be cheaper for all of us and more resilient if we have supply chains that tap into the comparative advantage that we all individually have.
You mentioned AI, and we should definitely talk about that. I know the Cabinet were briefed on this week, I believe, but how transformative of the British economy is this technology going to be over the next decade?
Well, I think it's going to be, I still don't think we've got our head around how transformative it's actually going to be. But it's still got a long way to go. I mean, I checked out ChatGPT at the weekend, and I asked, is Jeremy Hunt a good chancellor? I thought I'd give it a go. And the reply came back, as a large language model, I don't have subjective opinions on everything, but Jeremy Hunt is not Chancellor of the Exchequer, that's Rishi Sunak. I then said, well, that's wrong, actually. Jeremy Hunt is Chancellor of the Exchequer, to which the reply came back, I'm so sorry about making that mistake, but I can reassure you that Rishi Sunak is Chancellor of the Exchequer. So there's a bit of a way to go, but I think it's going to be totally transformative is the answer.
But there are very senior people in the tech industry, not least Elon Musk, but others saying that we should be slowing this down, that this is a dangerous technology, or has the potential to be, without thought and regulation. That's not really happening at the moment. Do you agree with that?
Of course there's a potential for this technology to be used in a bad way, and indeed, you know, we need to be very mindful of that. But I don't believe it's possible in the world we're in, where there are countries that don't share our values, that are investing massively in AI, to opt out of this race. I think we have to win the race and then be super smart about the way we regulate it so that it is a force for good and enhances the values that we all believe in. And I truly believe that AI can be the answer to the productivity and growth challenge that all advanced economies are facing. We're all asking ourselves the same question: how are we going to fund, you know, health services, social care services, more money on defence when you've got people like Putin doing what they're doing, and keep taxes at a bearable level? And the answer is we have got to find a different way to grow productively, and AI has a major contribution to make in delivering that possibility. It's
obviously a threat to a lot of people's employment though as well, isn't it? I mean, you're Chancellor, you have to think about these things as well. There's a lot of middle class, mid-level jobs that would appear to be in the firing line over the next 10 years all of a sudden.
Well, I just don't buy that. I mean, look what's happened to unemployment since we've been in office in 2010. It's halved, and it's halved in a period where every time there's been a new technology, we've leaned right into it. We haven't tried to protect legacy models. In fact, the UK is very well known for going full steam ahead for every new technology there is. And so I think, yes, of course, jobs are going to change. And that comes back to your earlier point. We have got, though, as jobs change, to rethink our approach to skills. And I think the biggest change we need to make is to tear up this idea that skills are something that you acquire during the full-time learning stage of your life until you finish higher or further education, and then you stop and you start a career. Skills are something that are going to evolve and change throughout your whole life. And you know, to go back to maths to 18, and I would also say making sure that we don't have 100,000 school leavers leaving education unable to read properly, which is what we still have in this country. Sorting out basic skills is one of the most important things you can do, because it recognises that through people's lives they're going to have to retrain. All those Uber drivers are going to have to find different jobs when we move to driverless cars, and if they don't have basic skills, it's going to be very hard for them to retrain in the industries of the future. So I do think we have got, I mean, I'm very, very proud of the fact that, you know, in the last 7 years, our schools have shot 9 places up the international league tables for English and maths. And I think our universities are some of the very best in the world. But I think when it comes to the 50% who don't go to university, we've still got a lot of work to do to make sure that people are properly equipped for the new industries of the future.
Just before we finish, there are other people who've sent in questions and asked about your own tech use. You talked about Chat GPT. Are you on TikTok? Are you a Grant Shapps style?
I'm afraid if you go onto TikTok, you can find some very, very amateur and pathetic videos that I did probably about 2 years ago when it first started. But shortly before I took up this job, I actually deleted my TikTok account because for security reasons. So unfortunately, that's TikTok is deprived of a great potential new entrant. Not.
Do you have concerns about it yourself? Do you let your kids use it?
My kids do use TikTok, but I'm in a job where I think it is important that people can't automatically know where I am at any one time, and I think that was my concern about the way TikTok worked. I wasn't quite sure about the way the location functions worked.
Okay, so we won't see any more dancing videos from the Chancellor. Okay, all
there
right.
weren't any dancing videos, but...
I promised them that we'd stop at 7:05 and it's 10 past, so I'd better knock it on the head here, I think. We should say thank you very much, Jeremy Hunt, and thank you very much all for joining us as well. We have got another tech event coming up in the summer. We have global tech events in June, so do please come along to those as well. We'll be telling you more about those in Playbook and in Morning Tech UK. Over the next few weeks. So there's more drinks, I think, and more networking is there for another hour or so. So please do stick around, come and say hello, and I'll look forward to meeting a few of you now. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.
This is an age of disruption, of profound revolutionary change.
What we're really asking ministers is to empower the ambassadors.
The only thing that you really push forth is the truth.
You don't see many women represented when it comes to the decisions as to how to handle the pandemic.